All right, next on Locked On Mavs, free agency and trades and the draft and anything else.
Anything else but about tonight's game.
We'll break down game 4 coming up now on Locked On Mavs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome.
You got a soundboard just for this, okay? Do you not have any sad? No,
There it is.
There
There it is.
I do want to say something right off the bat. Today, you listen to this on Monday. It's Memorial Day, and I just want to say thank you, just to everyone who has served and is currently serving. But more importantly, we take a little bit of time to just remember everyone who has sacrificed for our freedoms here in America, listening to this podcast, so we can do things like talk about sports on a microphone. And just know that families out there, if you're listening to this and you lost someone who's serving our country, man, just hats off to you. Much respect. And praying just for you guys and everyone serving right now.
Absolutely. The same exact thoughts. I'm Nick Angstadt, host of Locked On Mavericks. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator of the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Game 4 fiend, the One More Thing King, Isaac Harris. What you got for me?
So I texted somebody before the game where somebody from church texted and was like, all right, what's our predictions for the night? And I was like, I couldn't land on one, but I landed on one theory, or at least one thought. I said, I think it's a blowout, but either way, I was like, I think it honestly, I could see a Clippers blowout. They just come in and do exactly what they did tonight. I said, or I could see like that Clippers game being a one-off game that kind of did everything right in game 3, and Dallas comes back, kind of rights the ship, and they win by like 20. And I thought it would be a blowout. Unfortunately, option 1 came true, and it's kind of like this perfect melting pot mixture of things that went wrong for Dallas tonight.
Melting pot of mixtures that went wrong for Dallas is a great way to put it. We'll break down the Dallas Mavericks 106-81. The Mavericks scored as many points as Kobe Bryant scored in one game by himself in this playoff game. Like, we'll break down that loss for the Dallas Mavericks. Series is tied 2-2. After game 3, I said the series starts now. And if this is how game 1 of this series is going to go, it's not looking good. But Mavericks still won 2 games against this team. There's a lot of things to be hopeful for. There's a couple people who tweeted us and said, I can't wait to listen to Locked On Mavs because you guys will at least give us a little bit of hope. We'll give you all the crap too. Like, we'll tell you all the stuff that went wrong in this game for sure. But we'll also
I'll be a little bit more honest today. I'm just going to be straight up real. Some of y'all
we'll find
know
some
that
hope though.
We'll find hope, but there's a couple things. Yes, I ride the line pretty well, I feel like, of being a Mavs.com guy and also not a Mavs.com guy. I'm doing this pod. So tonight I will be a little bit more honest.
yeah. Not a full-time Mavs.com, so you don't have to go full. You don't have to go
exactly.
full media person. But let's just start with what went wrong for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks had their worst off. Like, I'm looking at the camera. I'm going full like head, like talking head, like The Office, whatever. The Dallas Mavericks had their worst offensive game all season in game 4. The worst, absolute worst. Like, their offensive rating has not been worse than that in this. They shot 16% from 3. That doesn't happen often. Luka just was completely like blanked at the line. I mean, we've known his struggles, but he shoots at least over 50%. Right? Like, just so many things went wrong for this Dallas Mavericks team. I'm going to show you just the offensive ratings for Dallas against the Clippers in general.
Please do.
in the regular season, the first game, the one that Mavericks won by 50, 148.6. And then the second regular season game, 107, then 111. Still well over 100, a good to pretty good offensive rating. Then game 1 of this series, the Mavs offensive rating was 129. It was also 129 in game 2. So an elite offense in game 1 and 2. Game 3, 124. Still an elite offense for the Mavericks in the first 3 games. Game 4, the Mavericks offensive rating, points scored per 100 possessions, 84.8.
It's not good.
Their worst offensive rating of the season. Think about all the bad losses this Mavericks team has had this season. OKC loss, the Houston loss. There's a bunch of other losses you can point out. Some of those, Jazz losses. Like, there's just been some really bad losses, and this was the worst offensive one. Now, if you want to take it the other direction, the Mavericks defense was actually better in this game. It was the best defensive rating the Mavericks have had all season. And some of that was maybe just the Clippers didn't have to push as hard, but their defensive rating in this game was 113.9. The other games that had been 121, 124, 136, the Mavs defensive rating. So, the Mavericks defense was kind of, I guess, a little bit better. Maybe this number is more about what the Clippers did on offense, but the Mavericks offense, if they had showed up even a little bit, even if they showed up 50% of what they normally are, they would have won this game. but they didn't at all. And so, at least looking at the big picture of this game, that's what really stood out to me, is that the Mavericks offense was the worst all season. Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but what was bad about it? I mean, we can go through individually.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tim Hardaway, after the first let's just have a Tim Hardaway talk. Tim Hardaway, after the first 2 games, there were tweets about him. There were tweets from other players. I think CJ McCollum tweeted, says Tim Hardaway Jr. is about to get paid.
Yep.
All caps. We talked about on this podcast as far as upcoming free agents, who's the guy who's making money in the playoffs.
Yep.
Tim was the prime example of that. He made those first 2 games this is incredible, outplaying Paul George. Let's go.
He did.
Well, if you could regress in the next 2 games, Tim Hardaway is the example of that, because not only has he not shot the ball well the past 2 games, he's 1 of 8 tonight, 0 of 4 from the field, only 4 points. -7 in the game, but they were targeting him on defense almost the same as KP. I mean, they were finding him, going after him. He was just nothing. He was absolutely nothing on defense. And when Kawhi or anybody had him, I mean, we were up there kind of yep, Tim again. And in the media, it's they found Tim again. Terrence Mann just pushed him out of the way for a rebound.
Yep.
Whoever it was, they were just targeting Tim Hardaway. And when you have someone like Kristaps Porzingis, who is definitely struggling defensively, that's an understatement, on the floor with Tim Hardaway Jr., then you have 2 people that opposing teams are just targeting and can go out, and defensively, it's just a mismatch every time for the opposing team. That's when you have an issue. And tonight, I mean, honestly, these past 2 games, it's and the whole thing with Tim being out there is for his offense. And you're all right, it's not like this is brand new information of him being bad at defense. We know this, we know this. Just because you take charges well doesn't mean you play defense well.
Right. That's the only good thing he's done on defense this season.
Yes, but when you're not hitting, then it shines a brighter light on it even more.
Right.
And
right.
It was just it was taking some weeks off my life watching him play defense.
That was one of the big changes the Clippers made. There's a couple other adjustments they made. We'll talk about the starting 5. We'll talk about some of the offensive decisions that they made. We'll get into that. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by Locker Room. Download the app and join us sometime this week. Maybe before game 4 or maybe before game 5, we'll see. Locker Room, changing the way we talk sports. We'll get into all that and talk about it. But before we do, let's also talk about Indeed. If you're the hiring expert for your company, what you really need is help making your life easier and to help make a short list of quality candidates. You need to make your decision go from 1,000 candidates to 10 candidates or 100 candidates to 4 candidates. That's the way that'll make it easier for you. And Indeed does that. Indeed makes connecting with and hiring the right talent easy and fast with tools like Instant Match, giving you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all the job sites combined. 4 times. 4 times. That's like what the Clippers shot better than the Mavericks in game 4 from 3. Get started right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. Get a $75 job credit at Indeed.com/locked. Again, Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you about Built Bar. One of the best ways to get over a terrible, terrible loss for the Dallas Mavericks is to have a Built Bar. Go get one.
Go get one tonight. It's a game.
Isaac, which flavor did you have?
Oh, you already know it. Coconut brownie chunk.
The coconut brownie chunk ones, man. I only got 4 left, and so I'm rationing them now. Now I'm diving into the raspberry, the cherry barcia, the mint brownie. Put them in the fridge. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Protein bar tastes like a candy bar. By the way, that mint brownie, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar in a bar that tastes just like a candy bar. You can carry it around with you. Isaac took it to the game. It's a great way to do that. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order. I've used it many times. Go use it and get some more Built Bars today. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into the rest of this game. So, we mentioned the one big change the Clippers did. And to be honest, I'm surprised it took them to game 4 to do this. Is attacking Tim Hardaway Jr. Like,
oh, okay. Yeah, that
negligence. The other change also, they it took them too long to make this change too that we'll talk about. But attacking Tim Hardaway Jr. was one of the big changes they made. And it was brutal to watch. Like, it was just absolutely brutal. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. is fine if he's going to be your 5th best defender on the floor. Which in the starting lineup, he normally is, right? Luka is better than him. Dorian and Maxey should be better. Porzingis should be better. At this point, I don't know what the order is anymore, especially in the series, especially for what they're supposed to be. But Tim really, really struggled, and I was surprised it took the Clippers till this long to start attacking him. The other thing that goes along with that is it's wild to see how different this Clippers team looks from game 1 and 2 to this game. Right, like even game 3, I don't think they looked as good as they did in this game, but it's wild to see in the playoffs. It's not always the Clippers are this, and so they will always be this, right? In a playoff series, your team can change to the point where you make drastic changes, like you make pretty big changes. Guys just don't play anymore. Ibaka, you're kind of hurt. All right, stay in LA. Doesn't matter. Patrick Beverley, you're not really effective. You're completely out, right? Like the teams change so drastically because it's do or die in some of these games, and so. It's wild to see how different this Clippers team looks in game 1 and 2 when we were all excited and happy to now when we're, frustrated and looking at a really, really bad loss.
Well, they're getting more comfortable. I guess the thing, set with, John Charks, we just took in the game again tonight and we're just going back and forth in the game. And he just looked at me. He's like, they're like Paul George and Kawhi. They're just too comfortable. They're too comfortable with Dorian and Maxey now. It's like Dorian and Maxey, they're doing the best they can, but they're just used to them. Like the first 2 games, it's kind of like Kawhi and Paul George getting used to them, and now like Paul George knows
all their moves.
He knows everything Dorian's going to do. So that was one of the we can touch on a later segment. I thought Rick got out coached tonight, and just the adjustments on it's like at some point, like I love Dorian and I love Maxey, but at some point when players figure the other guys out, and this goes for other good defenders across the league too, at some point, if they're getting torched like that and they just they're in their bag and they know everything that the defender's going to do, just switch up something. Throw Josh at Paul George, throw Dorian at Kawhi. Like I know Kawhi's going to either Josh. I know Kawhi, is going to kind of beast Dorian down low, but at least try something else different whenever he knows exactly what Maxey can do now. Dorian, like saying that, and Paul George. So switch up some of those matchups. That's what I kept on waiting on. But yeah, Tim's the target, and that's the thing that kind of goes against what a lot of us have been trying to predict. When's Dallas going to go small? Even if they go small, Tim's probably going to be in that lineup, and then he immediately becomes the target. So it's just the question is, will Dallas ever go small?
And the thing is, the Mavericks, if they are playing offense at the level they've been playing, I mentioned all those offensive ratings against this team. If they're scoring 120 points per 100 possessions, their defense doesn't matter as much, and so you can get away with some of those guys getting cooked a little bit. But their offense just didn't stand up to it. So at that point, you're like, all right, well, what do we do? Also, Rick Carlisle spent a lot of time talking about defense at the end of in the presser after the game. Camp? And I was really confused by that. I was confused why he didn't like bring up the offense because it was one of the worst that we've seen. I found that really interesting. But so your point about make a change, that's one of the biggest things I saw on Twitter is just switch them up. Put Dorian on Kawhi and put Josh Richardson on Paul George or something. The reason why they don't put Dorian on Kawhi, and this is why Rick Carlisle is kind of, at least defensively, in an impossible situation, because Kawhi bullies Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, anytime he has ever guarded him, pushes him. Like Marcus Morris did it at the end of, I think, the second quarter or the first quarter. Just he was in the left corner. Dorian was guarding him, and Marcus Morris just puts out his arm, kind of like the wing kind of arm, but he doesn't push off, so it's not a push off foul. He just puts his arm off and just pushes him with his body all the way to the basket and hits a layup. And that possession right there is why Kawhi. Like Dorian can't guard Kawhi. He would just push him to the basket.
At least try it though. Like what is Maxey doing to where you're saying, all right, let's do it. Like that's the thing. At least swap them. Like at least try Dorian on Kawhi to give Kawhi a different look from someone.
I'm just saying it's an impossible situation for Rick, because if he takes Maxey off, at least Maxey is strong enough that Kawhi can't just push him to the rim. He at least has to take the jumpers. Now he's making all the jumpers, so it doesn't really matter at this point. But with Dorian, he'll just push him to the rim. He's done it before. With Paul George, you can't put Maxey on Paul George because Paul George is way quicker. He'll just go around him. Paul George with his crossover.
No. That's why you got to try Josh on him.
You got to try Josh Richardson, I think. And we haven't seen that a lot in this series, which I was kind of surprised by, because there was all that stuff pre-series we talked about with, Paul George has been fined 2 times since 2019, and both of them were after games that Josh Richardson guarded him, and apparently that means nothing. So. But yeah, that's the reason why there has to be some kind of change, though, because you're right. It's just become stale at this point. Yeah. And the other thing is, this is just a roster problem. We knew this. This is not something we didn't know, right? The Mavericks were able to win those first 2 games based on their offense alone. It was not about the defense at all in those first 2, because the defense just wasn't good in those first 2 games anyway. And the Mavericks don't have rim protection. Paul George is right.
Yeah, well,
Porzingis has regressed so much as a defender that it completely changes anything that the Mavericks can't be competent defensively unless he's a good rim protector, and he's just not even a good one at this point.
Yeah, I love seeing coaches and just the adjustments and the battle between coaches. I even texted you in the first quarter. I was like, these coaches moves right now.
Oh, it's so fun. I want to break them all down, but
yeah, they're just playing chess. And it's like those first 2 games of the series happen. Dallas, does their thing, and we're waiting. We're roasting Ty Lue. And it's like, when are you going to make a change, bro? Like, when are you doing it? He slowly starts to take Zubats out of the rotation. Pat Beverly's gone mostly, and then it's like, okay, now you take Zubats out. Now it's ready for, and even after game 3, now it's ready for Dallas's card to play. What's Dallas's move? And we said on this podcast, we're like, Dallas is going to go small. You have to, you're going to entertain the KP stuff in the fourth quarter. You got to go small. And he didn't go small. That's what I was waiting for. And it never happened. Not only did they not go small, but they went big and said, hey, let's do the Boban experience, which we can talk about that just in a second. But it's like the Clippers started off tonight saying, we're not even going to mess around with this. We're not even going to spot start Zubats. We're going to start Batum. We're going to we're going straight into this. We don't got time to play around with all the crap and all these dumb lineups. And Batum, by the way, went 2 of 6 from 3 tonight. You know what else is 2 of 6? 2.6 carbs. That's today on the road to the finals. Our NBA playoffs coverage is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. And at 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, we can all enjoy the games a little bit more this season. And I thought Batum had actually a decent role in this game. And after the game, he even talked about playing the Draymond Green, Boris Diaw role for the Clippers. And he's honestly playing it pretty well right now.
That was beautiful. That was the most beautiful thing that you've ever done on this pod. The Clippers did what the Warriors did, right? When the Warriors went small and put Andre Iguodala instead of Bogut, they're like, all right, we're not messing around. We're starting the death lineup. Like, we're starting our lineup that works the best. And we're not messing around at all, because why do the frivolities or the casualties of like, oh, we got to start Porzingis because of blah, blah. All right. Coming up, we're going to get into the Mavericks trying to get Porzingis going early. We're going to get into the starting lineup change, which we already kind of talked about a little bit, and then a couple other changes and what the Mavericks can do and what was hopeful about this game. We'll get into that a little bit and talk about that soon. But before we do, let's talk about BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. There's a lot of sports action going on right now. There's MLB, there's NBA games every night, there's NHL, all kinds of stuff. Let's see if they have the Dallas Mavericks and Clippers. They do not at this point, but there's a bunch of games you can put money down on. Sixers, 8.5 point favorite over the Wizards. I don't know about that one. I feel just like an end, like 1-2-3 Cancun for the Wizards on that one.
Yeah.
That's game 4, right? The Jazz, 5.5 point favorite over the Memphis Grizzlies on Monday. Interesting one there. The Grizzlies and Jazz, they've actually played some pretty close games, but then at the end, you kind of get a 10-point advantage on either side. Portland is a 1.5 point underdog against the Nuggets. That's been a fun series. That one's on Tuesday. Go check that one out. If you feel really strongly about either of these series and you want to put some money down, use the promo code LOCKEDON and get a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. I want to dig into the offense, and I want to dig into why it was so incredibly bad in this game. First of all, Luka Doncic is hurt.
Yeah,
he may
100%. This isn't a LeBron crap thing. He is 100% hurt.
And I know that we hate you guys are just using the excuse that Luka is hurt and he's setting up the narrative, like the whole, like that's what Isaac means. That's what Isaac means by the LeBron crap, is you set up the narrative of, oh, he's hurt, so you don't hold it against him as much. You know, the what was it, the little splint on his wrist, and like he came out and he broke his hand after the finals. But Luka is actually hurt, and he was questionable before the game, and he ended up playing, and he's going to play through everything. People were upset that he was playing at the end of the game. Luka's just going to keep playing, man. You're not going to tell that guy to sit down. And fans came and they want to see Luka. And so I think that that's the reason why he was playing at the end of the game, because he wanted to play and because fans wanted him to play.
Try telling Luka that you're going to set. Like, hey, Luka, you're going to sit down and not play the whole fourth quarter. Like,
And there's a lot of psychological things with that too, that I don't think you can just sit Luka at the end. Of course. It's not the smart thing to do, right? Like, injury wise, it's not the smart thing to do to put him out there and put KP out there to risk injury at the end of a pointless, fourth quarter where they're not going to make a comeback. But psychologically, it just says we're quitting, we're done, it's over. And then all of a sudden it gets into guys' heads and you're like, okay, well then the series is over or whatever. And so there's all kinds of different ways that the mind can go with that. And so I think it's another move I don't think you can do. But anyway, Luka, 19 points, 9 of 24 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3, missed all 5 of his free throws. And two sets of them were 0 for 2 at the line. Just absolutely brutal from him. 6 rebounds, 6 assists, another thing to watch out for. He played 36 minutes. The Clippers have played him in a bunch of different ways. And one of those is to try and take away every pass. Try and take away every pass and make him a scorer. In this game, he couldn't score, and he also, all the passing lanes were taken away because the Clippers defense was ratcheted up, man. They had their rotations down, I thought, in this game. And it was night and day different. Just from the opening, first couple minutes, I think I tweeted this exact phrase. Their defense is night and day different. And maybe it's because it's self-corrected, because they took out Zubats and they put in Batum, so they had an all-small lineup. They had all guys that can just switch on everybody. They're not worried about, okay, well, can I switch on that guy? Can I switch on this guy? All that kind of stuff. They're not worried about that, and they're just straight up freely switching. And so that was their change they made. And so their defense was just completely better. All the rotations were clear, and then Luka didn't have a bunch of passing lanes to open shooters. There's not a ton of open shots in this game, I thought, for the Mavericks.
No, they've adjusted so well defensively and offensively. I think their ball movement was incredible tonight too. But going back to Luka is 100% hurt. I watched this guy in so many timeouts tonight of just hands on the knees, talking to the coaching staff, the massive wrap they would wrap him up in every time.
They were doing that in game 3 too.
Him getting looked at constantly. I just watched him so much in the game of just during free throws. I mean, you can just tell he's just holding it, looking, and for sure, 100% hurt. It's just he's just going to do whatever he can to be out there.
And he has a pinched nerve. He may allegedly he allegedly has a pinched nerve. They're calling it a cervical strain, but our resident Twitter doctor, Dr. Brian, I was going back and forth with him on DMs, and he says that sounds a lot like what they call a pinched nerve. And that's no joke. Like that's not something I mess around with. But Luka's going to continue to play through it. That means every single pass, every single shot is pain. And that throws you off. That throws you off your rhythm.
The turning and looking thing, the same thing Rick Carlisle said in his post-game media session tonight. It was the same thing I'd heard during the game. And it's just like, I mean, it affects everything. And, Rick said it after the game. He said a cerebral player like Luka, who's played his whole life, just with his head on a swivel.
Yep.
When you can't turn, or when you do have to turn to one side, you're having to turn your entire body. Your head can't turn. It does change the way you play. It's not an excuse. I mean, it's not an excuse right now. I'm just telling you exactly what is going on with Luka right now and what he is playing through. It's affecting him. So, I mean,
it's not his left shoulder. It's not his shooting shoulder. So, take that as you will.
Yeah.
He also did hit some wild shots in this game.
Yeah, he can still shoot.
Even with it.
Yeah.
So he decided to have his worst offensive game of the year, maybe. And then also everyone else on the team did too. But I want to talk about the offense a little bit in the sense that the Mavericks really tried to get KP going early in this game. Before the game, I tweeted out, is this the biggest game of KP's career? Because it felt like if he went into this game, the Mavericks lost, and he had another stinker, just the same as game 3, then all of a sudden just irredeemable with Mavs fans, right? Like just Mavs fans, and for whatever that means, like they would just completely turn on him, and he may never get the fan base back, right? Like if he had another game like that, because first play they ran a play for Porzingis, kind of the same play they run almost at the start of every game. They run KP around a little screen, he takes a little jumper inside the paint. Second play, KP on the block. Paul George is guarding him. Turned around, hit a jumper on him. Third play, Luka tries to force it inside KP, who's getting pretty low position. I think Reggie Jackson ended up on him, and they turned it over. The first 3 plays of the game, they tried to get it to Porzingis. What did you think about starting him early? Does that affect the offense? Is it good for the offense? Do you think that that's what they should do? What's your thoughts on the KP offense?
Yeah, well, normally it's Tim or KP. It's, outside of I guess it was game 3 when Luka was going off. Normally it hasn't been Luka going for a shot early. Luka tries to do the LeBron thing, what LeBron used to do a lot of time. And I guess he still does, but
about not being healthy ever again, or
I don't, for his entire career, Luka I think the neck thing, maybe if he saw 3 rims, he just aimed for the middle one.
See, that's not a good joke.
Instead, think the, good man above that. But, trying to get the other guys involved, I thought it was a perfect game plan at the beginning. Say, hey, Porzingis has been struggling. Let's get him the ball early. And it worked. He had those first couple of baskets. The whole arena was just going nuts for him. I'm like, let's go. This is exactly what he needed, right? Confidence. Fans are behind him. This is awesome.
Mavs got their largest lead of the game then. After he hit those first 2 shots, that was their largest lead.
That's mean.
It's true.
But, I mean, the Clippers started small. They started Batum out there, and slowly their defense picked up. And then, bam, the card that you could have told me a million times or said, hey, guess what Rick's going to do tonight? And I can't explain to you the look that Charks and I looked at each other when Boban got off the bench, and we're like, what? And I'm like, I literally said, hey, for the arena's sake, that's cool, because honestly, the arena started shaking. It was so loud when Boban got up and started checking the game. I'm like, hey, just for the fan aspect of this is amazing, because the Clippers had went up a little bit, and Boban came in. It was fun. He looked like he was playing against like a YMCA team. He scored, and the place went nuts. But that can't be your only card.
No, that can't be your.
It was a fun gimmick. Like, it was a fun thing for a little bit. I was just shocked that was the main adjustment that Rick had. And I mean, being honest, like, Rick has to adjust more. He got out coached tonight, and he has to make some other changes in this. or else the series is going to stay the same, and they're going to lose 2 more games if there's no adjustments.
The other thing is the Mavericks didn't take the same amount of threes they normally take. They took 30 in this game, right? Like they're average like 40.
Yeah, they hit 2? No,
five. Pretty close. You're pretty close to that. But yeah, so it's just a very strange offensive game for the Mavericks. Nobody was on, but starting with Porzingis, and Porzingis only played 28 minutes, which is kind of strange, considering but they were trying to go through him. They were trying to play through him. He finished with 18 points. He was a minus 21 for the game. His defense, completely different conversation. He looks so lost on every possession, like every defensive possession. Yeah. Lost on where to help, lost on where his man is. Like there was one time he was under the rim with Zubac, and Zubac put the ball up and missed it. And then KP was trying to go for the rebound, and he landed, and then Zubac landed at the same time, and then he didn't contest when he dunked it. Like it was just, it's so confusing to me to watch him play defense, especially since he was known for defense in New York. That was the thing that Knicks fans were most excited about, is his defense. They were like, his offense is pretty good. And yeah, he's called the unicorn because of his offense, but he was the unicorn because he could block shots on one end and hit threes on the other, right? It wasn't just because of his offense.
It honestly kind of reminds me of like Dirk and some of his like last years. I'm just being
watching him on defense. I know.
It does. And he's lost a lot of the mobility on it. And honestly, it goes back to what he said this earlier in the season when he was first like coming back and getting off the injury. He was like, it's a mental thing. He said, I'm seeing something and I'm making the decision to do it. And I'm just a tad bit late on that. And that's the part like that is stuck in my brain so much. I'm like, I think he sees it. It's just his body's just not like catching up to the thoughts. He's just lost the mobility there, whether, the injury stuff and it's like he has sandbags on his feet at times, and it's going to be a target.
It's bad. He did have his most rebounds of the series so far though.
5? That's
5.
Good. What's the StatMuse tweet about Campazzo?
Yes, he passed Campazzo in rebounds per game. Anything else you want to point out in this game? We talked about the Boban switch. The Boban switch was interesting because it brought out Zubac from the Clippers, which is what the Mavs wanted to do to get that switch. But then there was nothing else after that. There was no other changes. They tried Trey Burke for a stretch. That's not it, right? Like that can't be your back pocket thing. They tried Richardson a little bit longer than normal.
I'd play Brunson, 28 minutes before I'd play Trey Burke. We have a couple more pods before game 5, and I'm sure
2 days off.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have, probably tomorrow's pod. We'll talk about the changes that we think, should happen. Maybe some lineup changes, some starting lineup changes, any of that, because there's a few things that I think I want to see more Brunson and Luka, but we can talk more about it on tomorrow's pod.
Series isn't over. 2-2 feels over, right? Feels over, but it's not. It's 2-2, new game. The home team has not won a game yet. So if that trend continues, the Mavericks will win the series.
Yeah, well,
that's just math.
Yeah, the series right now hinges a lot on Luka's health, unfortunately. And can Luka get back to how he's playing those first few games? The first 3 games, and that's the key to it. And you look at the 2 games they won. Tim Hardaway outplayed Paul George in these past 2 games. As much as we like it, obviously Paul George is a better player than Tim Hardaway. Paul George,
that's very obvious going in and playing.
Well, he stepped up, and he's outplayed Tim these last 2 games. Just Dallas they have to have Tim Hardaway, and tonight he had 4 points. Yesterday or the game 3 he had 12 points. They need him to have around 20 every game, and
especially if KP's not giving him 20, 25.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Boban game 4 was fun though. We had a classic Boban moment. Broom. Let's go.
That was great. I just wish that it would have been like at least would have been a close game then. It would have been more fun, but it just felt like, let's be fun. Let's have fun with this again.
we're late in the pod enough to take a shot at Pat Beverly. This guy.
I wanted to do this too.
You're not playing in this series because you're too small.
Right.
Like you got played off the court because you're too small. Not only because you're too small, but Luka Doncic told you were too small and told you a lot of other things about you. And you can't even play in the series. But when Jalen Brunson gets shot over by Nick Batum, and it's in the second half, and bro, you haven't even checked into the game, and you're over on the sideline doing the too small like celebration. Man, there's something ironic and weird about that. I'm like, what? I don't know. But
look at this guy with 10,000 Twitter followers making a good point here.
Oh, did your tweet work? Did I get it?
Congrats, 10,000. I was gonna make fun of Beverly for another thing. Patrick Beverly can't play in this game. Can't play. You're an all defense guy. You can't play in this game. And then you get put in garbage time. Garbage time with Josh Green and Nicolo Melli and Daniel Oturu, like guys that just don't play. And he hits an and one over Nicolo Melli and is like, yeah, and one. Walks, like puffs his chest out and walks to the free throw line. You're like, you are not playing in this series. That's what I would make.
You started this series as a starter, and now you're not even playing at all.
All right, there you go. The Mavs obviously lost, but we got our shots in. So.
Yeah, we had
celebrate when you can, right? There you go. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
KP's happy they're going back to LA. Peace out.
Boom.